Welcome into episode 544 of the Skate Podcast. I'm Brian DeFelice, joined by Bridget Prue and Scott McLaughlin. Bridget and Scott, the Bruins can't figure it out away from TD Garden, but on home ice, they certainly can. It's their 13th straight win in front of their fans. They beat the Kings 2-1 in overtime.
Yeah, an absolutely exhilarating game of hockey. You just lots of up and down chances. Fans really got their money's worth. No, it was a pretty boring game of hockey for most of the night. But yeah, obviously, Bruins take the lead in the third, Kings tie it late, and Bruins get the win in overtime. So hey, you'll take it, right? I mean, playoff race, getting down to it, like you just got to get wins however you can. You'd prefer them in regulation, but you'll take the 2 points.
Even the fight was left something to be desired because neither guy could reach each other. So Zadorov was trying. He was trying, but like trying to go over top, and it just wasn't. Sometimes the fights don't pan out the way you want them to. That was maybe a way to try to spark things up because yeah, there wasn't a lot going on, which we can get into, but it ends up going to overtime. So the ending ends up being exciting. And we'll get to that. And I guess that kind of ties into my opening shift. So I'll just start. So Charlie McAvoy cannot catch a break. And once again, ends up injuring his face. Now missing more teeth. I feel at least two more, I think, on the bottom row. Just it's pretty much one entire, actually slightly more than half of his bottom teeth. At least in the, maybe he's got something all the way in the back that we can't see. But in terms of like what you can see, it's more than half of the front of the bottom. And it looked like his front two top teeth were chipped as well. And he ended up leaving for how long was it, Scott? Just about. It ended up getting to the point where like, I don't know if he's coming back. Do you know how long it was?
Yeah, he missed the last 6.5 minutes of the second period. That hit was like 6.5 minutes left. Obviously Zadorov comes to his defense and drops the gloves with Hellenius, but he missed the rest of the second period, and then he was back for the start of the third.
So I know Marco Sturm said after he kept looking over his shoulder to see if he was coming back on the bench in the second period, and he's like, oh, he's not here. So like having to try to mix up pairs and whatnot and hoping that McAvoy was okay. And then eventually he does come out and play the third period I'm sure he said his mouth feels worse than it ever has. And we know what his mouth has been through this season. So that tells you something, that it's in extreme pain. And the original puck hitting him in the face in Montreal in November only really affected the bottom, but this one affected top and bottom, and he had stitches on the bottom, like inside of his lip as well. But he went out and he played the rest of the game, and he scores the overtime game-winning goal. So it was one of those very hockey player moments where you play through what most people couldn't probably fathom playing through, and you're able to still impact the game. And the Bruins desperately needed both points. They were leading, and then on a Mason Lohrei goal, and then LA tied it later in the period, and then you're like, oh, this here we go again. And then Pastrnak to McAvoy for the game winner was a nice way to see it end. And then I felt so bad when he came out. Like, obviously we knew he had an injury, but we didn't see that he was missing teeth until we saw him face to face in the locker room after. And they still brought him up for he says, I only get 2 questions picked, the 2 best ones, because I have to go get more dental work. And like literally actively bleeding, comes down and does the post-game interviews. And then the first guy didn't even ask him about his poor face. And I was like, what is this question? We only get 2. But yeah, like he's extremely tough, obviously, for going out there. And I asked him about like, are you just used to playing through this kind of stuff now? And he was like, honestly, like, I wish the hits would stop coming because he's just so tired of having to worry about that and having to be in pain and wondering what's going to I feel like at this point, he's probably like, what's next? Like this just keeps happening.
Yeah, I wonder if part of him coming out is to try to kind of like make a point to the officials, to the league of like, are you just gonna like let this shit happen? Like, I mean, it was a hit from behind. Like Hellenius got him in the numbers, and he goes face first into the glass, and there's no call. That just ends up being the matching fighting majors. I think back to the last game before the Olympic break when he gets elbowed in the head by Uvis Balinskis, and there's no call. And McAvoy did not talk after that game. He didn't talk about it until he got to Milan, or actually until he posted something on social media. But yeah, I think McAvoy's trying to get the point through of like, why is the league like letting guys get away with these hits on me type of thing. So in that sense, I get it, because it was different than Florida. I was down there for that Florida game. Like we requested him, knowing that he had dealt with an injury, but he chose not to talk then. So this time he does, and I think part of it is like, you get your face out there, it makes visually, like, it makes the point of like, hey, dumbasses, like, you missed a call that caused an injury.
Yeah, the one right before the Olympic break was, I mean, that was so obvious it should have been a suspension, and then it's happened to him multiple times that like he gets injured and there's no retribution, the league doesn't do anything about it, which is crazy. So yeah, I put the picture up of his face if people didn't see it. This was when he was talking to us. I took these pictures and you can just see that there's more teeth gone. He was still bleeding at the time he talked to us too. So yeah, he really can't catch a break. And then he said didn't feel like he had his game, like he wasn't playing well. He said to us after, and but he said, I'm happy we got 2 points. And I don't know, I feel bad for him at this point. That I do think he should put the bubble back on. I know he had just taken it off. What is it, halfway through the Olympics, or he takes off the bubble. It's like, maybe we don't want to risk it. I don't know if we want to leave it up to fate at this point.
Yeah, it was at exactly the 3-month mark, which is what the Bruins doctors have been telling him all along. Like, you got to go 3 months. And so, yeah, he said, like, in Italy, like, texted the doctor, he was like, it's 3 months. Can I take this thing off? And they were like, yeah, sure. And now, yeah, maybe he might have to think about putting it back on. It's crazy too, because like he's had a couple other scares recently. Like he had was it the Nashville game, like a puck deflected up and got him in the mouth, and like he was fine for that. I mentioned the Balinskis hit, like that was up high right before the Olympics. Yeah, so it does just seem like his face and his mouth is just like a magnet this season.
Yeah, I see. The doctors say he doesn't need the bubble, but the universe says you might want to, you know exactly what we got in store for you. So yeah, seems like the safer bet.
Yeah, man makes plans and God laughs.
Yeah,
you mentioned he may have tried to make a point after the game to the league and the officiating. Who knows? Maybe the refs were trying to help the Bruins last night by keeping the game at 5-on-5 because that's how poor their power play was. You know what, boys? You don't have it on the PP tonight. We'll keep this 5-on-5 for you. Don't worry, Chucky. Obviously, that's tongue in cheek, but the power play was not good last night.
No, it wasn't. Yeah, I'm sure we can get more into it. But yeah, just like really sloppy all game. I mean, turning it over on entries, just not getting set up, just bad passing, like not crisp at all. And so I mentioned off the top, like the whole game was kind of a mess. My opening shift is leaning towards maybe a more positive view of that, at least in Marcus Sturm's eyes, is the way the Bruins locked in defensively and only gave up 15 shots on goal for the game, which is a season low. their previous season low was 17 against Philly just, a week and a half ago. So they've had a couple games like this recently. But yeah, it was interesting because on Tuesday morning at morning skate, I was asking Marco Sturm about the offense and about needing to get other lines going besides the second line. Because now, so since the Olympic break, they've now played 7 games. They've scored 12 5-on-5 goals, and 9 of them have been with the second line on the ice. So I think that line has now outscored opponents 9-2 since the break, and the rest of the Bruins have been outscored 10-3 at 5-on-5. And Sturm's done this a few times now this season. You ask him about offense, and he says, "I'm not worried about the offense. We got to be better defensively." And that's seems to legitimately be his bigger concern with other lines is he doesn't feel like they're locking in defensively. Like, he truly believes like you take care of your own end and then the offense will come. Like, I think he's less worried about like, are they working hard enough in the offensive zone, or like, are they hanging on to pucks? Are they creating enough chances? Like, I think he's like, just take care of your own end first. So, at least they did that on Tuesday. And like I said, held LA to a season low 15 shots on goal. As Bridget mentioned, the one Kings goal was, I mean, they definitely could have been better defending the rush there, letting them get into the zone. But then it's a Drew Doughty slap shot from the point that goes in off Elias Lindholm. Like, kind of bad luck, right? Like, that shot's going wide if it doesn't hit Lindholm. So
Lindholm's first 5-on-5 goal in how long, Scott?
Yeah, probably a while. But Sturm after the game said, like, because someone asked him, did that kind of feel like a playoff grinding type of game, which I would push back against that premise that maybe until very late that did not feel like a playoff game to me. But Sturm said, like, that is how we have to play. Like, it is going to be a grind down the stretch. And he was happy with the defensive effort and thinks that's how, at least on that end of the ice, that's how they need to play going forward.
Yeah, that was asked to Laura as well, and I was like, I don't know if we were watching the same game, but I mean, I guess in the sense that that game didn't have a lot that opened up, like, that's how it would be like a playoff game, but certainly the intensity was not one that rivals a playoff game. But maybe the fact that there was not a lot to be had, not a lot of chances to be had, not a lot of space, like, kind of a slog, but definitely didn't have the playoff vibe, in my opinion, and we were both there. So yeah, go ahead, Brian.
All right. Well, and listen, it was a big 2 points because the Blue Jackets also won last night. They beat Tampa 5-2. So they remained 2 points back of the Bruins, same amount of games played for that last wild card position. The Bruins, however, I want to say are only 2 points shy of third in the Atlantic. And so them, Detroit, Montreal, it's not solved yet between those 3 teams as to where they're going to finish. But yeah, it wasn't a pretty game at all. I think that ultimately this stage of the season, it comes down to accumulating points, and that's what they're able to do, as ugly as it may have been. But my opening shift has to do with one of their opponents last night, and that is Anze Kopitar. Kopitar has made it public that this is his final season. The Bruins, having last night been their final game against Los Angeles this year, did what has become a trend in recent seasons with very prominent Hall of Fame type players who have announced their impending retirements, where they'll show them respect and shake their hand after their final game against them. And that's what the Bruins did last night. And I just wanted to talk about Kopitar for a second here, because we have celebrated Patrice Bergeron in this region for 20 plus years, and deservedly so. And Bergeron is one of the premier two-way centers of his generation. And if you want to talk all time, I mean, he's arguably the best defensive forward probably ever, to the point where maybe the Selke Trophy should be renamed after him. But out west in Los Angeles, Anze Kopitar has been he's had as great of a career as Bergeron, perhaps, greater. I think you could argue with the multiple cups, and this is his 20th season. He's got over 1,300 points and just over 1,500 games. And again, I feel like playing out west in Los Angeles, it's just not the hub of hockey, we'll call it. And I think he kind of played under the radar for much of his career. And I just think that Anze Kopitar quietly is one of the greatest two-way forwards to ever play the game. And so it'll be a loss for the NHL when he hangs up the skates at season's end, whether that's after a playoff game or game 82, we'll see. But if there are Bruins fans or hockey fans out there that just aren't familiar with him for one reason or another, again, we celebrate Patrice Bergeron, but Anze Kopitar is you don't want to compare Hall of Famer to Hall of Famer. It's not really fair and it's not really appropriate, but he's just, where do you guys feel like he ranks all times in terms of two-way forwards, and obviously, center iceman at that?
Yeah, high. I've loved Anze Kopitar for going always back to when he was younger, like to that first Kings Cup team in 2012. Like, just always loved his game. Like, can do it offensively. Obviously, a great defensive center, plays hard, can be physical, but like never dirty. I mean, he's won, I think, 3 Lady Bings. Like, has always done it the right way. Just remarkably consistent. Like, if you look at like his hockey reference page and like go through, it's like every year is like 70 plus points pretty much. All through his prime for like 15 years, he's like top 5 in Selke voting. He wins 2 Selkies. I think would have won more if it wasn't for the fact that he's running into Patrice Bergeron for so much of his career. But I mean, like, always good on faceoffs, like over 53% every year. Again, like, another part of it, it's just incredibly consistent, and then huge on those 2 cup teams. I mean, he was their leading scorer on both Stanley Cup teams. So yeah, just a player I've just always been a huge fan of. And yeah, obviously we don't get to see him as much with him being out on the West Coast, but I've always like appreciated watching him come into Boston like every year when they visit, or catching Kings games, late night after Bruins games. So, yeah, should obviously easily be a first ballot Hall of Famer. Just an incredible career. Oh, Bridget, you're having mic issues.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. For some reason that happens sometimes. But he's 38 now, and I feel like he's still got it. Like, like I feel like he's still, not quite as good, but still good. Like, and
yeah, I was gonna say, like, this is the first year his production really dropped off.
Yeah, like, he hasn't been one of those that you're watching like, oh, that should be the last year. I don't know. I still think he looked good when he played last night. And yeah, he's got 3 Lady Bings, 2 Selkies, and a Mark Messier Leadership Award. Bergeron obviously has more Selkies, but I guess that's probably, to your point, Brian, his closest comp would be Bergeron. Yeah.
Even in the sense that you're talking about, Bridget, where watching Kopitar right now, you feel like he still has it. And that's how we felt about Bergeron in his final season. And there's something to be said about a player, an athlete wanting to go out when they still are, not at their peak, but still capable of producing and not being a negative out there, right? Like, you don't want to be out there and be a detriment to your team for the sake of playing 25 years, right? And I think that's admirable, because it's probably really tough for a player who knows that they can still go, but they know that it's also time to hang them up and let their body kind of recover for the rest of their lives and spend time with their family and whatnot. So
also Brian, Another comp for Bergeron that everybody was reminded of last night was McAvoy playing through the injuries and the pain, because obviously Bergeron is one of the guys that's talked about around the whole NHL for what injuries he's played through with broken ribs. And I mean, he's considered to be one of the toughest players for what he did, playing through a playoff series or playing in the playoffs with broken ribs and was it a punctured lung? So I don't know, it was multiple things. But yeah, it's like, okay, this is another example of with McAvoy of somebody who just not only, has he already played through it this year, like he just came out and I feel like he didn't even think twice about coming back and playing. So
Well, to that point, Bridget, it makes me think of a topic we've discussed dating back to the summer and at points throughout this season. And it's not that important of a topic, big picture, when we're talking about the on ice product, but it is a storyline that is still out there hovering over this franchise, and that is who their next captain should be. And the three of us here were heading into the season and throughout much of it, it's been, yeah, it's David's job to lose. And I will just say this. If Charlie were to make a case this year, he's made as good of a case as he can. The job may still be David's, but when you combine all the injuries that Charlie's had to deal with that you've outlined today, Bridget, you add in the leadership quality that he brought to the Americans in the Olympics and what we know he means to that USA hockey program among the other top NHL Americans in the league who all talk about his leadership. You win a gold medal. But beyond all of that, he's producing at the highest point per game clip of his career. And throughout all the injuries he's been battling this year, Charlie has been outstanding. It's been the best season he's had in quite some time. And as I said a minute ago, arguably, actually, it's objectively his best offensive season of his career so far, if we're talking point per game production. So I ask you guys this. Have your minds changed a bit? And that this is not to discredit anything David's done this year, because he's still leading the way offensively for the team overall by a mile. And he's still carrying his weight and doing his thing. But this topic that needs to be concluded at some point, that's still subjective. Where are you guys at with when we're in the teens now of games remaining in the regular season? So this is going to play out throughout the course of the final 17 games, and if they make the playoffs. So it's not, the book's not closed yet. The Bruins still have some things they want to see to make that decision. But I'm just curious, now that we're 5% through the season, Bridget and Scott, like, what do you guys think right now? Has your opinion changed at all?
I'll tell you what my current opinion is, and it's very simple. It's that either of them would be a great choice, and they're both mature and they both lead in their own way. And so
But they got to stick the C on one of the chests, though, right? Like, they have to make that decision.
Yeah, but I'm saying, like, there's going to be so much argument after the fact if they choose one and not the other about what it should have been. And I really just don't think that it should be. People shouldn't complain no matter who it is, because I think they're both good choices, right? Like, they've proven this season that they both are. Obviously, Pastrnak continues to be himself offensively, and McAvoy, I feel like Pastrnak, I watched mature a lot last year, especially, with no Marchand. And then from that point on, like, I feel like he was kind of the leader when McAvoy wasn't, he was dealing with injury and was out for the rest of the season. And I feel like we watched him mature in front of our eyes then. And I feel like I've watched McAvoy this season really mature. Just like in our interactions with him, you can see a difference. And I just really think they're both good choices. So when a decision is made, and who knows, maybe they give them both a C. They both have the A right now. Maybe they give them both a C. I know it's not precedented. Well, I should say it's happened, but it's uncommon. Maybe this is a rare case where you do it. Maybe they're both making such a good case that you're like, why do I need to make one and not the other? Scott has talked about in the past why it was kind of a not so good idea, but every team's different. Every group of people is different.
That's where I was going to go, is like, one thing I've thought about more is like, could they end up as co-captains? So you can't have two guys wear the C in the same game, but you can rotate. Like, you can switch off, whether that's every other game or one's the C at home, one's the C on the road. Because I've been really impressed with both of them this season and the way that it's worked. And as Bridget alluded to, like, I was skeptical of anyone when going into the season. Like, I cited the Hurricanes, I think it was like 5 years ago or whatever, as a recent example where after that season, players straight up on the record said, like, I think we probably needed to pick a captain. And like, I thought eventually they would, because I just think it's tough not having one, or maybe running into situations where guys don't really know like who's stepping up or who to turn to. And it just hasn't seemed to be an issue at all this year. Like, think about how, because it was such an easy storyline for people to latch onto. Think about like how much it was discussed on sports radio earlier in the year, and now it's just like a non-story. And it's a non-story because they've done a good job and it's worked. And I would have a hard time picking one over the other. I was certainly leaning Pastrnak going into the year, and maybe push comes to shove, might still lean that way, but it's like very close. It'd be like 51-49. And so again, like, the co-captain thing, that doesn't happen often. That's also unusual. There is one example in Bruins history. Ray Bourque and Rick Middleton did it for 3 years in the mid 80s. The final 3 years of Rick Middleton's career. Now that's a little bit different because you had Rick Middleton as the elder statesman towards the end of his career, and Ray Bourque as the in his prime superstar, or really like just entering his prime. So that's different, right? Like, that's two guys kind of on the different ends of the spectrum. This is still Pastrnak and McAvoy. It's two guys in their prime, two guys you think are going to be here for many years to come. So there's not as much of a, well, it's clearly going to be Ray Bourque once Middleton retires type of thing. It's like, would they split the C for like 7 years? Like, I do still feel like at some point you kind of got to pick, but it's at least started to cross my mind more of like, could they do that? Right? Like, if those two are on the same page, and it seems like they are this year, like, could it work longer term versus just one season? Like, I don't know. My gut tells me they'll still pick one at some point, probably this coming off season. But it's not the splitting it is not. It's not impossible. Like, I wouldn't totally take that off the table.
Yeah, and you guys raise good points, and again, I agree with you both in that they're both deserving. I think it's 50-50. Bridget, you're right to highlight David's maturity last year and stepping up when Charlie was out for the whole second half of the year, pretty much. And then you had the yard sale they did at the deadline, and he continued to just step up in on and off the ice. And then this year, David hasn't not stepped up. He has continued to do so, but Charlie has done so in probably a more notable way to the public, just with the visuals of the injuries and knowing what he's been through in the Olympics, and also his play this year. So that's why I think it's such a fascinating question, because as I mentioned earlier, it doesn't really make much of a difference on the ice at all, really, probably, and maybe not even in the locker room much. But I'm curious to see, with two guys who we all think are equally deserving, if the Bruins go the more traditional route and stick a C onto one person's jersey. I'm curious to see which player that the Bruins decide to go with, because it just kind of lets you into their mind of all right, we're gonna go with this guy, like, for all that a captain represents, right? Like, a captain's a thing for a reason. Teams choose one for a reason. So I'm just because it's so neck and neck, and they're both deserving. To your point, Bridget, I'm just fascinated. Maybe they do go co-captains. I think the Bruins tend to be more of a traditional team, especially as an original six, than untraditional. That said, Scott, you're right to mention Middleton and Bork overlapping as captains. That was clearly more of a passing of the torch type situation. And this is obviously two players in their prime that you mentioned. So maybe they do that, but it would surprise me. So in the greater chance that they go more traditional, I'm just fascinated. And you're right, Bridget. I would not be disappointed with either decision.
There is also, by the way, in Bruins history, historic precedent of not having a C for more than 1 year at a time. From 67 to 73, for 6 seasons, the Bruins did not have a C, and they won 2 Stanley Cups during that time. So now everyone knew, I think, that Johnny Busick was the de facto captain, but he didn't actually get the C until 1973.
To me, that feels like not what the situation calls for in the current moment. And in college hockey, a lot of times they wear 2 Cs at the same time because they can. And you'll see a defensive captain and a forward captain. It happens. Sometimes you can even have a goalie.
There's college hockey teams that have like 6 captains.
I was gonna say there's
too
3
far the other way.
There's a few that have 3 that I've seen. Like they'll throw the goalie a C, defenseman, forward, or like they'll do like a top 6 C and then a bottom 6 C. But like, so you're talking about the passing of the torch kind of situation where it's like one older, one younger, but you could do one forward, one defenseman, and there is, different parts of the room that each person talks to more. But at the same time, like the crux of the dilemma is that they could both have the same length career and leave the league around the same time because they're not that far off in age. And who knows, like maybe Pasternak's slightly older, but maybe he'll play longer. We don't know. So the dilemma is that there is no obvious, like if you give it to one, the other one may never be captain, is kind of where part of the problem lies, is because you feel like the other one is also deserving of it. So I wouldn't be opposed to the 2 Cs.
I mean, Patrice Bergeron didn't have a C on his jersey until his final 2 or 3 years, and that's a perfect example of a guy who most anywhere else would have had a C on his jersey, but of course, Chara.
But at the time that they gave Chara the C, he wasn't quite to that level. Whereas this time they're both like on the same level.
Agreed, but the result was Bergeron played 95% of his career without it, which is kind of like the point you're saying of like one. If they choose one, the other one may never get a C. Bergeron may never have gotten a C, and everybody was okay with that, and that's why I don't think it's a huge knock to the other guy. You're still going to be an A, and Chara was the captain with the C. Bergeron was his co-captain. He just had an A, and it's going to be the same thing. That's why they're both deserving. I don't think much is going to change. I'm just curious to see, no pun intended, what they decide to do with 2 guys who I think they could go with, and no second guessing. I just think both players have made such a strong case for themselves over the last year and a half, and that's a credit to the both of them.
Yeah, and obviously, like, they both saw that Chara Bergeron dynamic. That's what they came up under. So, and Chara's, I mean, both of them are still around, but Chara literally like has a role with the team and works with the leadership core. So, obviously, they, that they have that to lean on, and like if and when they pick one of them to be the C, like you can have Chara and Bergeron talking to them about that dynamic, and like Chara always went out of his way to call Bergeron as co-captain. So it's like, that's, you're making sure like he understands that he's still a huge leader, even if he isn't wearing the C. And I think that would have to continue, like, right? Like if Pastrnak gets the C, it's like, you would want Pastrnak taking the same approach that Chara did, where he's calling McAvoy as co-captain and like making it clear, like nothing's changed in my mind, right? Like you hope that's how they would handle it. Bridget, you are right to highlight the difference though in terms of like when they made the decision, because like I do think that's notable, and it's something that you might have to massage over in some way. Like, yeah, I don't think anyone would have thought Bergeron was going to get the C in 2006. So the choice was fairly obvious then. that was a huge part of like signing Chara. A big part of it was he's coming in to be the captain. So it is a little different. Where like now, if and when you make this choice, whoever doesn't get it, they're human. Like part of them is going to feel like, oh, they chose the other guy. Like they picked him over me, right? Like we were both in the running and they picked the other guy. Like that's just a human reaction. It doesn't mean they can't get over it and work through it and have everything be great. But I don't think Patrice Bergeron in 2006 was like, that's weird. Like I thought that was going to be me, and they picked Chara over me. Like I think Patrice Bergeron knew in 2006 he wasn't getting a C yet.
I mean, Bergeron's also mature beyond his years and wouldn't have thought that somebody less mature than Bergeron could have said, I mean, I have played a couple of seasons with this logo on my crest, and this guy hasn't yet, and he's coming in without knowing anybody, and he's the captain. We all here agree that was the right decision to bring Chara. He was a culture changer. But I'm just saying, it's every situation is different, but human emotions are always there. But I think Bergeron, being who Bergeron is, it really was a nothing burger. But any event, I think we're all kind of on the same page here. So I think we all agree to whatever they decide to do. We still have, whatever it is, 18, 17 games left here plus playoffs. So the Bruins have time to make that decision. But for those listening or watching, what's your feeling? Should they go no captain for another season or so? Should they go co-captain? Should they go one or the other? If so, where are you leaning? But Scott, I wanted to ask you a question based off of an answer Marco Sturm gave you pregame yesterday. And I think you may have alluded to it earlier about trusting his guys up front. And what was your reaction to that? Because the question was specifically about Lindholm and Pastrnak staying together. And we've talked about it. We'll continue to talk about it until it no longer is the case. But Elias Lindholm is a fantastic center iceman in terms of winning draws and gaining possession off of faceoffs is not something to be overlooked. He's also really reliable defensively and just an overall dependable player, but not so much dependable in terms of offensive generation or production at 5-on-5. And I know that there's people out there who say, why are we harping on 5-on-5? 4-on-4 is a thing. The power play is a thing. And I agree with all of those things. But where's the majority of the game played? At 5-on-5. And so that's kind of the reasoning behind your question, Scott. And I'm curious what you made of Marco Sturm's answer, if I'm going to trust my guys. Because I'll be honest with you, when I see Elias Lindholm in the offensive zone, I don't care how well they take care of their own end in the D zone. Once they get to the O zone, I just don't see enough generation from him. And it's there on occasion, but do you think he puts the fear into other teams of, oh, we got to watch out for Elias out here?
No, that definitely not. Yeah. And I mean, worth noting, like they were on that line was on the ice for the Kings' only goals. So now in 7 games since returning from the Olympics, the Pastrnak Lindholm line, and whether it's been Geeky or Husendinov with them, has been outscored 4-1 at 5-on-5. And being on for 4 against in 7 games it's not good. It's not awful. Like it's probably one too many, but only they're in theory, like that's still your top line. Only scoring 1 5-on-5 goal in 7 games is just not even remotely good enough. And that's where that's why I ask about the offense. And Sturm, again, just because he is so defensive minded, takes it to the defense. But like I absolutely think the offense is part of it, because that they're not holding on to pucks in the offensive zone. They're not making plays. They're not connecting on passes. So I talked to Elias Lindholm one-on-one after Tuesday morning's game, and that was going to be, I'll probably still read it at some point. That was going to be my story Tuesday night until all the McAvoy stuff happened. But he acknowledged it. I think everyone's aware probably by this point. Like Elias Lindholm is very honest and transparent, and he's self-critical. So like he's a good guy to talk to about this stuff, because he doesn't like get offended if you ask him about it. Like he answers honestly. So he was pretty open about like, yeah, like I don't think we've been connected enough. He's like, I think we're making plays that we hope are going to be there, and we're not. He said like we're not close enough to each other. We're not connecting on short passes. He also said like he feels like there's been times this year that they have been, and that it's been much better. And he pointed to like the Rangers game right before he got hurt before the break, where, and I think for that game it was Geeky on their line, and they scored 3 goals. Like they had a great game, and it's like that's not in terms of how many games ago. Like that's not that long ago. That's probably, counting the games Lindholm missed. That's like 9 or 10 games ago. And I mentioned like when it's been Husnudinov on that line, they've like doubled up opponents in goals. So it's like, yeah, there have been positive things. It's the people who like I've heard from some people on Twitter of like Lindholm and Pastrnak haven't any chemistry all season, and I don't think that's accurate. I think they've had good stretches, but this is now stretching into like a fairly prolonged stretch of 7 games, several weeks here post Olympics of it just not clicking, like really at all.
Yeah. I mean, Husnudinov and Elias Lindholm were both -1. Pasta was even, right? Because he is assisted on the game-winning goal. But I leaned over and said to Scott at one point, I was like, I just feel like I haven't even seen them out there. Like I just felt like they hadn't done anything besides on the power play to really be noticed. And then when it hits Lindholm in the leg and goes in, then that too. But that hadn't happened yet. But I was like, I just feel like I haven't seen them out there. So basically their shifts were a wash, essentially, because I didn't really notice them doing bad and like defensively, but I didn't notice them getting any opportunities. And once again, it was the second line that had the best shift and led to the goal. Victor Arvidsson gets the secondary assist on Lohrei's goal. It was a good zone entry. So that's a line that does have chemistry right now. That's a line that somehow finds each other. Like the way they got up ice with Middlestat, getting it over to Arvidsson, getting it back around to Lohrei. Like they seem to know where each other wants to be at all times. So good for them. They set up that goal. They were a big part of that goal. And then so I was Arvidsson to Hampus Lindholm to Lohrei for that one, made it 1-0. And it kind of felt like that game deserved to end 1-0. Because that's just kind of how much offense we saw. It wasn't a lot, though. I do think Fraser Minton could have had 2 goals. He rang the post twice. He came really close. I thought he had a good game. But other than that, like, and I guess we should give credit to Swayman at this point too, because there was a shorthanded breakaway that was given up to by a mishandled puck by Hampus Lindholm, which was supposed to be a shot, but he just missed it. And shorthanded breakaway, and Swayman makes a stop. Also, it was mistake handled as well at the last second, so it was an easier save than what it could have been. But and I think LA did that a few times where it's like, oh, that's gonna be a good chance, and then just it either rolled on them or they just misplayed it. And Swayman still had some really good saves, but in a limited number, like Scott mentioned, only 15 shots on goal. They missed the net quite a bit too.
Yeah, and that Lohrei goal, it does start in Boston's D zone. It was almost a giveaway by Casey Middlestat, but he atoned for it and was able to win the race to a loose puck and just bring it down the ice and fed Arvidsson in the neutral zone, and then it goes from there. So again, that second line really carrying the weight for this Bruins team. And to tie it all together, if that second line stays the same, which you just can't break them up right now because they're playing so well. I mean, their chemistry is off the charts right now. So keeping that line the same. And listen, you may call me crazy. I'm called crazy nearly every day of my life. I got called crazy at Dunkin' Donuts the other day. I hadn't even ordered yet. I said, wait till you hear my coffee order. So, but here's
really, Brian?
I got absolutely. Why? You don't believe me?
Because what were you doing? Like giving someone the crazy eyes? Sounds uncalled for.
No, I pulled up to the window. She said, "You're crazy." I said, "I'm not crazy. You're crazy." Anyway, so here are the line combinations.
What did you order?
That's just a normal Dunks interaction.
Yeah, it's like you stupid. All right.
I got a large black iced coffee. I don't know.
Hey,
what do you want to say?
Was
I'm
the
not
coffee
smoking
good, at
inside, Mark.
I don't know. You have to ask her. She called me crazy. All right. So anyway, talk to me about these line combinations. If we're going to keep that second line the same, why not reunite Pastrnak with Husnudinov and Minton for a little bit, give them a go, and then do Elias Lindholm, Geeky, and AC Mont or Steves or whoever the hell you want. Call it Matt Poitras. I don't really care. But why not keep Geeky and put Geeky and Lindholm together, give them a winger, and then see if you can get something with the kid line again, because that combination in a small sample, it worked. And I'm not saying you do it long term. And I know that points are at a premium right now, so maybe Sturm's reluctant to do something like that. But you gotta change up something. Those first and third lines aren't doing anything, so maybe mix them up.
That's what I'm saying. Like, yeah, I'm all for it. I don't know what you're waiting for at this. I mean, Sturm says I trust my guys, and I think that's it. That can be a smart coaching move, right? Is like turn to guys who are team leaders, which obviously Pastrnak is, and Elias Lindholm, even without a letter, is, and he's worn a letter at times this year. Leaning on those guys to say like, hey, I trust you to figure this out. But the thing is like they have to actually figure it out. That the longer it drags on with it just not working, like at some point you do have to do something different. And when I asked Sturm that question pregame, he did say right off the hop, he was like, I don't want to touch the Zacha line, which is totally understandable. And then he said, and Minton, I think his quote was, there's a little bit of an option there. And I was like, well, maybe it should be more than a little bit of an option. Like maybe you should just try it. I would be at that point. He seems to have, a little more patience than I might. But just to add on to what Bridger was saying about like the top line, quote unquote, being invisible in this game, when they were on the ice, the Bruins got out attempted 17-7. And they weren't getting the toughest matchup. Like they don't face the opponent's top lines. Middlestad, Zacha, Arvidsson gets the top line. They got the Panarin, Kopitar, Kempe matchup and won it. But the Pastrnak, Lindholm, Husnudinov line, they're going against the Kings' second line. Byfield, Trevor Moore, and who was the other one on that line? It was
Laferriere.
Laferriere, Alex Laferriere. Yeah. Which, like, all due respect to that, but like, you can't be the Bruins' top line and getting more than doubled up in shot attempts against that line, which I would say is probably a subpar second line in the grand scheme of things. Like, you really should be winning that matchup, at the very least playing it even. And they get out attempted 17-7 and they get scored on. Like, yeah, not good. Like, just pretty rough.
Can I supplement that argument with some numbers here? So the last 10 games, okay? Here are the Bruins' top 5-on-5 point scorers over their last 10 games. Victor Arvidsson, number 1, 8 points. Zacha, second, with 7 points. Middlestad, third, with 6 points. So there's your second line, okay? Clear as day, they're playing the best, and it shows in the numbers. Let's scroll down to number 7, where we see Michael Eyssimont, 4 points. Not exactly somebody that we're going to harp on in this episode. 8th is Fraser Minton with 2 points, or 3 points, sorry. Husnudinov is 10th with 3 points. Let's keep scrolling down to 13. Morgan Geeky, 3 points. Let's keep scrolling to 18th, where we find Elias Lindholm. Come on down, 2 points. David Pastrnak is 20th on the Bruins in the last 10 games at 5-on-5 points scored. So there's your proof right there that your second line is clicking, but your first and your third aren't. So something's got to change here, because that first and third line's not going at 5-on-5. It just isn't. And by the way, Jonathan Aspero, for people who were dogging him after the last game, it is worth mentioning he did have a couple assists against the Pittsburgh Penguins, even though he had a couple of ill-advised moments on some goals against. But Aspero is 4th on the Bruins in the last 10 games in 5-on-5 points scored at 6. So when he's what I say he is 4th, and you have Lindholm and Pastrnak at 18th and 20th. Come on, boys, something's got to give here.
Yeah,
And
I mean,
I think
Pastrnak. Did you say it was 2 points for Pastrnak?
Let's see. David has 2 points in his last 10 games at 5-on-5. Of course, we're talking 5-on-5 here.
I mean, like that's crazy.
Mm-hmm. Numbers don't lie.
It was like a where are they kind of situation, and not on the power play. Like that's when they're noticeable. And I also do think one of those shots I mentioned from Minton that hit the post was on the power play. He's on the top power play unit now. Or he was yesterday at least.
No, I think that was the second unit. I think Pastrnak was out there with them, but it was the second unit. Because it was Trusnadinov on the setup.
Yeah, no, it was that's who they started on the power bolt or.
But the top line had just been out. Like they just had a long shift.
So I should say that unit had more, I would guess, more time on ice than that last game, because they started both of them in one power play. They felt like they were out there the whole time. But yeah, one of Minton's good chances was on the power play. And I also wanted to say Asamont had a decent game. Like he had a few good defensive plays that I thought were noticeable, especially in the beginning of the game. He had a huge block on a shot that I think Swayman was not in position to make a save on. So I think probably saved a goal there early on. And I know he's been somebody who's been in and out of the lineup a bit, but I thought he had a decent defensive game and contributed that way.
Yeah, the bottom 6 was pretty good in this one. I was just looking at that when I was looking up the top line stats. The third and fourth lines, when they were on the ice, Bruins outshot the Kings 8-0. Kings didn't get a single shot on goal against the third or fourth line, so neither one scored. But yeah, I think that was a pretty solid game. And for the third line in particular, like encouraging to at least take a turn in the right direction, because that line had also kind of felt like no man's land for a while here after the break.
Yeah, it's fair. I mean, I don't see that trio as a long-term combination. I still think you want to try to get Morgan into the top 6 somehow or some way, or I don't know. It's
put James Hagen's there starting Monday.
Well, that's the other shoot that could possibly drop as well. I just felt like the answer that Sturm gave you, Scott, about I'm trusting my guys, but also saying, there could be something there with Minton's line. It's to hear him say I trust my guys when you're looking at a 10+ game. It's more than 10 games too. Lindholm, I'm not gonna look it up right now. I don't want to waste too much time on him, but Lindholm on the year in 5-on-5 scoring for the Bruins is, I still thinking, like 14th overall. So it's just, I know he's going to play. I know he's under contract. I know he's your top centerman in terms of faceoffs and defensive assignments. I know he's going to be on the team. I'm not saying that they're going to trade him right now, or I'm not calling for that either. But you have to try to find ways to open up opportunities for your top offensive players. You need, as good as David is, like he needs, he can't do it all himself. And I know that there's a counter argument to be made about, well, maybe Elias is helping out David on the defensive side of the puck, and that's great. That's great. But at some point, you have to be able to contribute offense too at 5-on-5 if you're going to be the top center. There's no other way around it. No other way around it. So, what other takeaways do you guys have from that game? We touched on the power play briefly. That was terrible. The Hampus Lindholm fiasco on that one in particular, where the Kings had at least 2 or 3 great A's in the shorthanded. That was just not good. Lindholm when he has some rough shifts, doesn't he?
Yeah, it was definitely a rough game for Hampus Lindholm. I mentioned this before we started recording, but on the power play, it's like when they have to do a quick regroup in the neutral zone, it's just a disaster, like most of the time. And it's like they would be better off just clearing the puck all the way down to their own end and doing the full ice breakout and entry, which they've been pretty good on, or at times really good most of the season. But like when it's like they turn it over just inside the line and then they have to retreat to center ice and they try to like quickly turn back up, they get no speed. Someone makes a bad lateral pass at the line that gets like easily knocked down or broken up, and it's like I know it's not like they do practice that, and I get it has to be part of your power play to try to quickly regroup and get back in the zone. But part of me's like, just do the full regroup. Like you can't do this. It just ends up wasting more time. Just do the full regroup and take it from your own end. Do your double barrel drop pass. Get Elias Lindholm and Pavel Zacha side by side, and just do that. But yeah, I thought in this game in particular, like the short passes right when they get over the line, Kings were all over it, and it's obviously Steve Spott's been great this year, so like I'm not gonna harp on too much, but it just felt like they were slow to adjust in this game.
I feel like I've never met Steve Spott. I feel like I don't even know what Steve Spott looks like.
He's bald.
Okay, great. That's like half or more than half of the coaches in the NHL.
Every time, all I know is every time I see him, I just think of Hank from Breaking Bad. He just looks like. Okay. I think that's what he looks like, right? The
Scott.
Yeah, a little bit. Like, a little. I can see that. I don't think that had ever crossed my mind.
Don't call me crazy. Don't call me crazy. It's too early.
Well, we have to do it at least once a day, so get it out of the way early.
It's true. How about in the offensive zone on the power play? What have you seen, or better yet, not seen from? Let's stick to the top unit right now, because those are your top guys, supposed to be top guys. Are you noticing any negative trends or bad habits that they need to snap out of here?
Yeah, I think PKs have started to take away what had been a really effective play for the Bruins, which is McAvoy gets the puck at the point, moves left, hits Pastrnak high on the right, and the goal is to try to then get Pastrnak downhill, and either he shoots or it opens up a passing lane to either the bumper or across to Geeky. I feel like teams are challenging that a lot quicker and a lot higher in the zone than they had been. And Pasternak's not getting downhill on that play anymore, and has taken a few, I would say, really hopeful shots that have just been blocked. And it's like, then that creates a 50-50 puck and you get scrambling. So that play has not been there as much recently. And it feels like, again, something like they're going to have to adjust to.
Yeah, I think that's fair, Scott. I also just think that they get too pass heavy at times. I think they overthink things. And again, I've said it in the past, but power plays oftentimes kill their own man advantage by just waiting for that perfect opportunity. And I think that sometimes it's there by design. Other times you have to create it by getting shots through. And if there are 50-50s, you do have the extra man out there. So you have to recognize and be on your toes. And I just feel like sometimes when you're too stationary, too pass heavy, you're making the PK's job easy, especially when you're battling, I would say, some confidence right now, executing, right? I think when you're battling when you have confidence, everything goes in, and you're gaining momentum on power plays you're not even scoring on. When you're not clicking and you're battling confidence, I just don't think you're going to pass your way out of that. I think you got to find a way to just, get a gross one or one off a leg in front or something, but you got to get them through, and you can't have them blocked. I feel like the Bruins for years have been one of the worst teams at getting shots through from the point. But
now I will say too, because like as I was talking about it, just jogged my memory. One of the Bruins I don't know if it was their last power play or maybe their second to last one. The same exact play I'm describing where Pastrnak gets it high on the right side. The Bruins did make an adjustment that led to maybe their best power play chance of the night, which was Zacha popped out to the goal line. Pastrnak passed it down to him, and then Zacha hit McAvoy going back door, and like that led to a great chance. So it's like there's an adjustment. Like have Zacha pop out, and that opens up a different option that isn't normally part of like that set play.
I wonder what it looks like going forward too, right? Like there's an adjustment there. It was sloppy and it needs to get cleaned up because they're, like you mentioned, Brian, earlier, they're fighting for that, last wild card spot, and they're only in by 2 points. And I will say though, looking at the standings, I do really only feel like two teams are safe at this point. Like Buffalo, against all odds, and Carolina, and then everyone else is extremely close. Like Tampa is in the 2 spot in the Atlantic, and they have 82 points, and the Bruins have 78 points. Are just like the last team into the playoffs. And then in the Metro, a bunch of teams have 79 points, so any of them could flip flop into a wild card or out, depending on what happens in the next 15 games or whatever. Some teams have, most teams have slightly more than that, I think. But it's going to be important. Special teams always important. Their penalty kill. Have you guys thought it's gotten better since the break? I know that's something that Sturm emphasized and wanted them to work on, and said that was like the main adjustment that they probably needed to make. Have you thought it's been better the last few games since the Olympics?
I think it definitely has, but I wanted to quickly touch on the standings too, because it is crazy that like Tampa suddenly is not entirely safe. Like I've thought they were the best team in the East the vast majority of the season, and they still have actually not comfortably, but like they still have the best goal differential in the conference, plus 48 on the year. But like suddenly, yeah, they've have 6 regulation losses in their last 10 games. And it's like everyone else is not losing in regulation, right? Like Montreal has 1, the Bruins have 2, Columbus 1, even Ottawa 1, Pittsburgh 2. Like other teams keep getting points a lot more often than not. And Tampa's slipped a little. Detroit as well, 5 regulation losses in their last 10. Yesterday. I can't. Bridget, your mic went off again, but
I think Detroit lost in overtime yesterday, is what I was saying.
I think they lost in regulation.
They?
Yeah, they lost in regulation to Florida. But yeah, so like, yeah, the Bruins haven't really pulled any further away from Columbus here recently, but like now on points percentage, they're actually ahead of Detroit, just barely. But it's like a couple teams have now kind of come back to the pack a little, and like it just stays so crowded there.
I'll just say about Tampa, and I've kind of felt this, from the jump, is that, they're a pretty top heavy team. I mean, they have 3 or 4 guys, and one in particular who really carries a load offensively. I mean, you have Kucherov with 104 points in 59 games. Okay, and then it drops down to 67 for Gensel, which is very respectable because that's over a point per game. And then Hagel's 59 points in 58 games. Darren Radish with a just absolute coming up party later in his career with 58 points in 56 games. And then Braden Point, 40 and 45. Sorelli has 39 in 55, which is, that's decent. It's not crazy. And then Corey Perry, who they just acquired, has 30 points in 53. I mean, their bottom 6 they don't produce much at all. And obviously, it's been a fantastic year by Vasilevsky. But
he slipped recently. Like that's
well,
part of it too.
There you go.
It's like,
yeah,
it's like he was having a great season, and I've been trying to pull it up, but Hockey Reference is not cooperating. But yeah, I mean, since the start of February, like I think his save percentage is like under 880. So that's part of it too. It's like all of a sudden he slips, and suddenly Tampa looks pretty human.
Yeah. So, and it started with that Stadium Series game. The Bruins, they blew the game, but they had a 5-1 lead, and midway through the second, not even. So
Vasilevsky's 884 save percentage in 9 games since the start of February.
Wow.
They're legitimately like, I don't think they're gonna fall out because even though they're so close in points with the other teams, they're still like the actual number of teams that are below them still is 1, 2, 3, 4-5, right? Like, so they're probably not going to fall behind all of them. But they could drop into the wild card. I mean, it's not impossible, but just saying, like, there's 5 teams that are in the playoffs that have fewer points than them. But that's what tells you how crazy this final stretch is going to be. And if you're the Bruins, you don't feel safe at all because you're the last team in right now. But if you're Detroit, Pittsburgh, New York, Islanders, like, you're only 1 point away from that too. So it's going to be a fun finish. And I guess we should probably say, like, this upcoming schedule as well, just so that people know before we go. Thursday night against the Sharks at home. So there you go.
Which is not a layup like it has been in past years at all.
Yeah. Bridget, I didn't want to totally ignore your penalty kill point.
Okay. Well, you kind of did.
Well, no. Well, you were on 2 different topics, and I did want to touch on the standings too. but like, I did want to circle back to the penalty kill at least quickly. Like, it has been much better since the break. They're now 17 of 19. That they've only given up a power play goal against in 2 games, and one of them was that extended 5-on-3. So, 5-on-4 penalty kill, even better. Yeah, I mean 89% since the break. So I won't say like it's looked flawless. I think there's still been a couple breakdowns, but it's looked much improved to me.
It's still ranked 24th in the league, even with that percentage improvement since the break. So it takes a longer period of time to really start to creep up in that regard. But yes, they've been better, and I feel like they've been more aggressive, especially when other power plays are set up. I feel like they're pressuring the puck carrier a little bit more into decisions, and I'm sure, as Marco Sturm said over the break, that they harped on that first and foremost with the Olympic break, and clearly being a little bit more aggressive and making. Again, you see with the Bruins when they're on the power play. When teams sit back and let David do his thing, or Geeky or like, they'll make plays. But when you see an aggressive penalty kill against the Bruins, we start to see them look pretty rushed and out of sync. And same thing can happen when you're on the PK if you wanted to play that way as well. But yeah, Bridget, the road ahead, the Sharks again, like they're not the Sharks of the last handful of years plus. I mean, Macklin Celebrini, of course, is one of the bright young stars in the game. Will Smith, they have a good up and coming roster, and they're in their own playoff race out west right now. So if you aren't ready to defend, they will make you pay, and they have a lot of skill and speed. So you talk about the penalty kill, you're going to want to be disciplined against the Sharks as well.
Yeah, and then you hit 3 road games in a row, which obviously we've talked about how their road record has been rough recently, and you have to go play Washington on Saturday at 3. That's an ABC game. I think we mentioned that last podcast, but that's a really important game because of where Washington is. Still not that far behind you, though, since they played them last, have fallen further back. Now they're 3 spots out of a wild card spot, and it's more Columbus and Ottawa that are behind you like the closest, but still really important game there. And then you play a back-to-back on the road against New Jersey and Montreal next Monday and Tuesday. And, Scott and I were talking yesterday at the game. I think it was actually, we're eating dinner before the game and talking about, hey, do we see Higgins next week? Monday, Tuesday, maybe. Obviously, that hinges on what happens with Boston College Friday. They're playing Maine Friday night at 7 on NESN. So that's one I think is going to have pretty good ratings because people are going to want to know what's going on. I do think Boston College has the advantage in that game. But they haven't been playing as well recently. So anything could happen. I don't know if Bruins fans are rooting for or against him. I guess is against him in this one situation so that they can root for him in a Bruins logo coming up next week. But Yeah, that's gonna be a really good game. There's a lot of good college hockey games this week too, because the Hockey East playoffs are on, and there are other tournaments going on as well. We're in the postseason in college hockey right now, so I guess I'll plug my games. I have a Wednesday night game, Merrimack and Lowell, and then I have a Saturday game, Providence against whoever the lowest remaining seed is at that point, and then actually, right after this, I interview Roger McQueen, which people can watch on This Week in Hockey East when it's going to air Thursday at 1 and Friday right before that BC Maine game as well.
Scott, a little BU, if we're talking college hockey real quick, little BU tip of the cap here. William LeBlanc on Twitter, I see this because it was retweeted by Butchergross, but Lane Hudson has officially the most assists in his first 150 games by an NHL defenseman in the league's history. 115 assists in 147 games. Not bad for a former Terrier, Scott.
He's good. He's pretty good.
He's not bad. He's not bad. Him and Celebrini.
Yeah.
Not a bad look for the program the last couple of years. Still can't believe they didn't win that game against. I went back and watched the highlights against Denver in that semifinal game recently, and BU and Celebrini in particular had so many great A's in overtime in the third period. I forgot just how dominant they were even in that loss. And Denver's goals were kind of leaky.
What possessed you to go watch that? What possessed you to go back and watch that?
I think we actually had been talking about it not too long ago, either on or off air, I forget. And so I don't know. I just looked it up.
Yeah, that run that Matt Davis went on, that Denver goalie, like, yeah, that BU game, like, they definitely had a lot of chances. I feel like BC in the championship game didn't have as many, but he still had some incredible saves. I remember him robbing Ryan Leonard at least several times. Yeah, and it's like, and that's, it's not, I mean, all due respect to like Matt Davis, like not like a highly touted goalie. Like he's got to be in the minors now, I would guess, but just got hot at the right time and shut down some incredibly talented college hockey teams.
I was saying that there's another Celebrini that might, maybe he goes to BU as well, because Aiden is there right now. Aiden Celebrini, who's Macklin's older brother, actually is a defenseman at BU currently. And, do they get the trio that could, and what was the points that he had, Scott? He had like 150 points in.
Yeah, I saw someone tweeted. So it's RJ Celebrini is Macklin's 14-year-old younger brother. But he's playing like a U15 league in Vancouver right now and has like 150 points in 50 games, which was like comparable to Macklin at the same age. So, for the record, like I have no idea if he actually ends up at BU. I've not heard anything, but I hope he does. I hope he does.
It always blows my mind when you see siblings, like take the Hughes, for example, the Hughes brothers. I mean, but there's plenty of examples in the history of the NHL, but to have one kid out of a family go to the NHL is astronomical odds. But then to have 2, 3, sometimes like 4 people of this, it's in the same family to go to the NHL. It's like how, like I don't know. It just blows my mind. Like I get your siblings in the NHL, and maybe you're training it, but you still have to have like that God-given ability. It just blows my mind. It really is crazy.
The Hudsons have 3, and then I know they have a 4th brother who's too young right now. I don't know where he's going to college, but like obviously Lane Hudson and Cole Hudson and Lane Hudson are similar, and Cole will eventually maybe he'll go be in the NHL by this time next week. So another brother combo there that'll be good NHLers.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes people will say when, if there's a second generation NHL player or whatever, and there's a couple of, like, take the Kachucks, for example. Somebody may say, well, their dad was in the NHL and, they probably had the best resources and opportunities available to them and it probably helped them on their way. It's like, okay, I mean, whatever, you still have to have the skill, but then you have people like the Hughes where, you don't have any NHL parent. It's just
Well, their mom played.
I mean, even but yeah, I know. But yes, she did, but like that's true. But like Luke is not even talked about, and he was like a 4th overall pick. It's just it's crazy. And their dad coached. Where did he coach? He coached the Manchester Monarchs, I think, at one point as well. He did, yeah.
That sounds right. That there's some sort of connection there.
Yeah.
And Celebrini, like their dad is, he was training for the Golden State Warriors, so they have access to pretty great resources. So like that's definitely part of it, right? Like
the Hudsons, though, right?
Yeah, I don't know what their background is. Like I don't know what where their parents, what their story is. But
how many Stahl brothers were there? 4, 3, 4, 3.
Eric, Jordan, Mark.
No.
There was a
4th, but he never played in the NHL, I don't think.
He was close though. I think he may have been at least in the minors. Anyway, at this point we're kind of going off on a tangent.
And I gotta go interview.
I know you do. All right. Any final thoughts from you two?
Nope, I'm good.
All righty. Thank you all very much for listening. Enjoy Bruins Sharks. We'll talk to you on Friday. Hey guys, thanks for watching the Skate Podcast. If you want to see more of our videos, visit our playlist.
Not in front of a screen? You can listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Don't forget to follow us on social media. And if you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give us a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and leave a comment.